An injured Rokuro sits there in the middle of a burning building as he calls to his fallen friends in a distressed manner. After experiencing such an attack, his belief in becoming the strongest exorcist is completely broken. A couple of years have passed since that incident, and Binio's traditional wash is interrupted by an old lady who informs her the time for her trip to Tokyo is drawing near. As she gets dressed, they discuss how such a sudden summon means that the leaders have acknowledged her growth as an exorcist, but there are rumors of someone that could be stronger than her around. During that interval, Rokuro confesses his love to a girl, but she quickly rejects him before he can finish his sentence. He gets upset with the result and runs away crying. He turns the corner and crashes into Mayura's natural airbags that soften the collision. His rejection must be a common occurrence because she correctly assumes that it's the reason why he's making such a mad dash home. Their conversation is interrupted when they see a kid getting picked on. Rokuro quickly rushes over and trips in the process, but he still manages to get the bullies to stop. Meanwhile, Binio has arrived at the capital via train and reminisces while looking at a family picture as she waits for the train doors to open. Her attention is drawn when the cabin lights start to go out in a cascading manner. Her familiar Kanako alerts her that it can feel the presence of the demons. The glass begins to break as they surround the train, sending the passengers into a frenzy. However, Binio calmly remains in her seat till the cabin empties before she jumps into action, revealing her talisman strapped to her legs. As the passengers watch on in horror, Binio opens a Magano gate which transports her to a parallel corrupted world. The monsters begin to enter through the window as they surround her as she puts on a mask ready to deal some damage. Back in the normal realm, Jisuma calls Ryogo to see how strongly the compass that detects supernatural phenomena is reacting. He orders him and others to go deal with it, and as they gear up to leave, Rokuro arrives home. Ryogo asks him to join them, but this upsets him a little because he has already told them that he will not be helping with any exorcisms. When the senior tries to grab him, he runs off. The others are confused as to why he's around when he never does anything. Ryogo explains that 2 years ago Rokuro was an amazing exorcist who everyone respected, but the Hinatsuki tragedy changed him forever as he was the sole survivor. Meanwhile, back in Magano, Binio is putting in the work as she takes out the hordes of demons that relentlessly attack her. One of them begins to eat its colleague, causing it to evolve. As she evades, her familiar advices, she fortifies her defenses. The girl uses some talismans that create armor on her body. The battle is taken to the skies, and Binio springs from a floating rock, jetting through the air as she buffs her swords with fire. This allows her to land a devastating piercing attack on the demon, but she used too much power, so she begins to free fall as she loses consciousness. All the while, Ryogo ran to a bridge to clear his head when his attention is drawn as Binio enters the normal realm while falling headlong. He quickly jumps to save her, but they both fall into the water below. She regains consciousness and they dry themselves at the riverbank as Rokuro remains on all fours, gasping for air. When he gets his composure, he notices her talismans and is a little smitten by her. She shows him a map as he tries to find out if she's okay. He inspects it and doesn't know the way, but to save face, he pretends to know as he offers to show her. He tries to make small talk with Binio, but she's mute and tells him that she finds conversation annoying. As they proceed, it becomes clear to her that he doesn't know the way, but she notices a candy store and informs him that she's hungry, but she doesn't have any money to buy something. Rokuro complains because she cleaned him out buying food. He tries to take some, but she doesn't allow him as she happily enjoys it all by herself. After eating, they continue their journey. Rokuro walks ahead a little frustrated till they pass a brother and sister on a bike ride. The two become alert when they are temporarily sent to Magano as a sinister laugh can be heard. They come back to the normal world and the kids are nowhere to be seen. Binio quickly opens a gate to the other realm. Rokuro is surprised that she's an exorcist and they arrive to meet the demon attacking the older brother as he lies there injured. He pleads for his younger sister to run as the monster closes the distance. Binio intercepts the monster by putting 2 blades in its head before finishing it off. From that display, Rokuro notes that she's strong. More demons spring out of the ground as she goes to check on them. Seeing their number, Rokuro fights the urge to go and help. In face of such numbers, Binio equips her full power and quickly dispatches them before healing the little boy. When things settle, she is surprised that Rokuro knows about Magano when he complains about her bringing him there. Before she can ask if he's an exorcist, they are interrupted when a giant demon appears. Binio gives him a talisman and instructs that he take the kids and leave. Rokuro is a little skeptical that she can take on something of that size and strength, which is further proven when Binio admits that she has never fought one like that before. She tells him that she can't run because she's an exorcist, and her goal is to exorcise all the demons. These words strike a chord with him because when he was active, he had the same dream. He watches on as Binio puts up a solid fight against the monster, but her attacks aren't potent enough. Disaster strikes when she realizes that she has no spare talismans left. Rokuro finally decides to intervene as he stands in front of her. He first teases her that she shouldn't be making such big statements when she can't back them up. With a painful look on his face, he turns to her stating that if she dies, she will not be able to enjoy her favorite food. The monster fully recovers from her last attack and Binio fanatically warns him, but she gasps in shock when Rokuro holds out a black talisman and walks toward it. He begins to recite his activation words, but stumbles when the memories of that day of the tragedy start to flood his mind. But he composes himself and activates it, which transforms his right hand into a weapon. Binio watches on confused as she has never seen anything like this before. He matches the demon's attacks head-on and defeats it with one epic punch. Binio can't believe her eyes. Rokuro calls his power a curse. He informs her not to tell anyone about what she witnessed because he doesn't want to be an exorcist. She bites her lips in frustration before stepping on his foot as she tells him that she didn't ask for help. Binio transports them back, stating that she could have beaten the monster alone. But Rokuro begs to differ since she almost met her maker. She finally introduces herself and asks for his name before leaving. While alone, she thinks about his words before he saved her, and she comes to the conclusion that she doesn't like him. Meanwhile, Rokuro walks home frustrated by the day's events. He remembers that he jumped into the water with his bag, so it must be still in the river. The guy decides to buy some juice to sweeten his day, but when he goes to pay, he remembers that he was cleaned out earlier. He hopes that their paths never cross again. He returns home with his wet backpack, and he's shocked to see Binio being tended to by everyone like she's a princess. Jisuma alerts him that she's going to be living in their dorm. His senior teases him, revealing that they are the same age, and it seems like he has a rival. Her familiar comes out to defend her when he tries to get cheeky with her and warns him not to mess with his master. Rokuro confesses that he doesn't want anything to do with her and informs everyone that he's going to bed. In the early hours of the next morning, his loud snoring prevented Binio from getting a good night's sleep, so she sneaks into his room and plugs his nose and mouth, which forces him to wake up. After he expresses his anger, she suggests they go to Magano because she was impressed with his power the previous day. This wounded her pride. Kanako comes out and explains that his master wants to fight him to see who the stronger exorcist is. Rokuro shuts it up, saying that he will never go to that place again. He proceeds to kick them out of his room while informing them that the previous day was a fluke and that he hates exorcists, so they should leave him alone. Rokuro overhears their conversation while trying to wake the others because of a demon sighting. Binio sees that they are getting ready to deploy and pleads for them to allow her to join. The team transport themselves to Magano, and they are immediately faced with a giant monster. As soon as it turns to them, Binio charges at it, dodging its attacks while she equips her talismans. She then proceeds with her assault, cutting it to shreds, but she knows that the one Rokuro took out the previous day was much stronger. She gets a flashback to her promising her older brother that she will become the strongest, but she thinks about Rokuro as she lands the final blow on the creature. The others rush over to tell her that she's amazing. They arrive back to the normal world where Ryogo wants to know if Rokuro fought. She confirms that he did and comments on how strong he was. The senior hopes that maybe she could change him back to the way he used to be. On the car ride home, he continues that he has known Rokuro since he was little. They grew up together but split for some time before they reunited at the dorm. He had already quit being an exorcist because of the tragedy, but he's sure that Rokuro is his true self when he fights as an exorcist. Ryogo informs her that his dream was the same as hers. Later that morning, Rokuro tries to stop the bad memories from coming back, but it has been difficult since Binio came into his life. He enters the bathroom and accidentally walks in on Binio freshening up. He quickly closes the door, red-faced, but she cuts the door down and proceeds to chase him through the house as she tries to end him for his transgression. All the while, Binio's guardian comes to the house to check on how she's settling. she comes accompanied by Arima, who Rokuro runs into. The young man calls him inappropriate because he's out in his underwear. The old lady scolds him for his comment and tells him that he's the chief exorcist. The house people sit as the boss alerts them that he has assembled the exorcist leadership below him because of an oracle that he received. Everyone later makes their way to a shrine with a secret entrance. They enter the 5-mirror chamber where other exorcists wait. Binio is well known and respected among them as they come up to greet her. Their sucking up is interrupted when their boss begins his announcement. He informs them that the oracle he received leads him to believe that the long battle between exorcists and the demons is finally coming to an end. The child of the gods, known as the Miko, will be arriving soon. This individual wields the most powerful sorcery and is the one who will purify all demons and close Megano forever. Arima calls for Binio to step forward and the crowd starts to comment that it is to be expected with her talents and lineage. Everyone is shocked to hear that there is another as the boss calls for Rokuro to step forward. He is surprised as everyone else. The rest of the congregation whisper amongst themselves because they have never heard of him. When he makes it to the front, the chief orders them to fight against each other with their full strength for everyone to see. Rokuro doesn't want to, but Binio has already been looking for this opportunity, so she is ready to go. She begins to attack as he only evades. However, Binio finally knocks him to the floor, hoping he takes the fight seriously. Arima begins to insult Rokuro's deceased friends, which gets him irate, so he activates his power, which surprises everyone. He rushes to attack the chief, but Binio blocks him away and has also activated her powers. She attacks with her flame blades, but Rokuro extinguishes it with a knuckle punch that sends her flying. She tries to state that she will be the strongest exorcist, but this strikes a nerve as he stamps the ground and fires the debris at her. As she struggles to block, she ends up having a flashback of her parents' funeral. Binio returns to find Rokuro jumping to land the final blow. She releases more power, stopping his advance, and takes the upper hand with some fast attacks. Rokuro picks up the speed and baits her. Just as they are about to clash, Arima deactivates their powers. He commends them on an excellent display and apologizes to Rokuro for insulting his friends to get him to fight. He never meant any of those words. Now that everyone has seen their skill, he names them as the Twin Start Exorcists from Legends. Binio has heard of it before. They are to marry as the strongest exorcists and give birth to the Miko who will fulfill the prophecy. This bombshell surprises them both, bringing the episode to an end. Things continue when Rokuro has a dream where he and Binio are a happy couple with the promised child. He wakes with his mouth wide open as he rejects the vision. The boy makes his way to the dining, still groggy, and meets Binio cleaning up after breakfast. They both throw their faces away simultaneously as they are not fond of each other. Rokuro reaffirms internally that he will never marry a girl like her. The two senior exorcists walk into the room and start teasing them as the future couple. Binio gets serious and tells them that it would be a disgrace to call someone who is not interested in being an exorcist her husband. When she storms off, the seniors state that they feel like they might be more compatible than they thought. After seeing his power the previous day, they ask Rokuro to join them on their next job, but he goes quiet with a look of pain on his face. Ryogo interrupts and pleads with Rokuro to help Binio as it will be her first day at his school. During class, Rokuro sits there uninterested, which quickly turns to shock when the teacher introduces Binio to the class. The boys in the class get excited that such a cute girl is in their presence. The girls are not impressed with the behavior of the army of simps. All the while, Rokuro knows that it's the work of the chief exorcist Arima because there are so many other classes she could have been placed in. Binio is instructed to sit next to the class representative Mayura. She notices that there is something between Binio and Rokuro. This makes her feel a little uneasy because she has a close relationship with Rokuro. Later on, the class has PE, and the boys mock Rokuro when he tries to overhype his abilities and fails. They look over and everyone is impressed to see that Binio is athletic too. Mayura goes next at the high jump but fails miserably. At food time, the class rep wanted to have lunch with the new girl, but she can't find her anywhere. Binio eats alone on the roof when her familiar informs her that there is a demon not far away. All the while, Ryogo and company have entered Megano to deal with the demons. They initially put up a good fight, but start to get overwhelmed by the numbers as time goes on. Things get worse for them when a giant demon appears before them. Binio comes back down and informs Mayura that she's leaving because something urgent came up. She wants the class rep to cover for her. Rokuro stops her and she tells him that a strong demon has appeared at Ryogo's location, so she is going to give them support. During the class, Mayura notices that Rokuro is a bit down as the guy is trying to overcome his past trauma. Back in Megano, the team struggle to fend off the powerful demon, and to their surprise, Binio comes in just in time to give her aid. she equips her talismans and begins to engage the enemy while the others watch in awe. After school, Mayura takes Rokuro to the amusement park they frequented when they were little. Some kids at the park remind him of him and his friends. Those kids decide to go on a roller coaster when the battle from Magano interferes with the normal world for a moment, which breaks the tracks. Rokuro quickly springs into action and saves the kids. During that interim, Benio uses a devastating technique to take down the monster. The two leave the amusement park after the incident, and Rokuro thanks Mayura for the day out because it cheered him up. She knows that his current issues are with his exorcist work, but she is there for him. Later that night, he returns to the dormitory and the others inform him of Benio's skill. She notices that he looks disheveled and asks what happened, but he brushes over it and changes topic to find out that the mission was a success. Meanwhile, in an undisclosed location, Orima gathers the 12 guardians to discuss the twin star exorcists. Ikaruga stands up and questions Rokuro's legitimacy to hold the title of one of the twins. The chief exorcist alerts him that it is what the oracle told him and reminds Ikaruga that Rokuro was the sole survivor of the Hinatsuki tragedy. Later that night, Benio stays up thinking in the garden when Ryogo joins her. He repeats his opinion that she can change Rokuro back to his old self, who took pride as an exorcist. Just like Rokuro, he too is an orphan, so the senior sees him as his little brother. He also briefly mentions the tragedy that imprinted so badly in the boy. Unbeknownst to them, Rokuro stands around the corner listening to everything, and he is annoyed that Ryogo said all those embarrassing things. The following morning, the group gather to go over the day's schedule. Rokuro shows his frustration when he shouts at Ryogo before storming off when he's questioned on his plan for the day. The senior takes the disrespect calmly and gets on with his day, delivering the dorm's exorcism reports to one of their branch offices. He and the other two make their way to a house that needs to be exorcised. It belonged to an old couple who passed away. Their son inherited the property and rented it, but all the tenants have vanished. Ryogo suggests that they split up and check each room. They examine their respective rooms and sense no malevolence, but they purify them just to be sure. There is only one room in the house that is yet to be checked. The trio enter inside and immediately sense an unpleasant energy. They conclude that the demon must be in the room. The mirror suddenly cracks and is followed by an intense sensation that grips them in place. They get the feeling that the air feels heavier. The other two are so terrified that they express their desire to leave the room. The demons appear in the mirror, so Ryogo opens a gate to Magano. When the trio arrive, they are faced with a large demonic combination of the deceased couple. Before they can react, the two are knocked out of the parallel dimension, leaving Ryogo in there alone. In the interim, Rokuro goes on a stroll to clear his head after his outburst. He walks past a sweet shop he used to eat at when he was younger. The owner recognizes him and calls him over. She begins to remind him of all his antics and even gives him his favorite snack to eat. She asks about Mayura, wanting to know if things have progressed between the two of them, but he strongly answers no. She then begins to talk about Ryogo, and despite the fact that they used to fight all the time, they were always good brothers. This strikes a chord with Rokuro, who excuses himself and makes his way back home. After cooling off, he contemplates apologizing to his senior. He entered the house and is surprised to see that they are not back yet, but shortly after, the door slams open, making him jolt. He turns around to see the other two holding one another injured. They explain the situation, revealing that they returned to Magano to look for him but could not find Ryogo. Rokuro gets worried and rushes into Benio's room and explains the situation to her, but she doesn't respond, so he calls for the second time. This catches her attention, so she turns around to find him bowing down, pleading for her to lend him her strength. He acknowledges his selfishness and also admits that he is afraid to fight given his past, but he is more terrified of losing his family. She asks him to raise his head, stating that one should never need to bow to an exorcist when asking them to fight. She promises that if it is her strength that he needs in battle, then he can have it whenever necessary. Rokuro thanks her. Meanwhile, an exhausted Ryogo runs through the dilapidated streets and hides in an alley away from the monster couple. They pass his location, so he breathes a sigh of relief, thinking that he's safe. He doesn't have any talismans left for opening gates, so there is no way for him to escape Magano. He wonders what Rokuro would say if he saw him in this state. He looks up, and to his horror, the demon has found him. It picks him up and throws him like a wet rug before proceeding to puncture his leg, allowing it to dangle him upside down. The assault continues, causing Ryogo to deplete his spiritual energy. He reaches for a talisman that doesn't work. The demon grabs him, and just as it's about to finish him, Rokuro comes in with a mighty punch that ends the head of the husband. Rokuro helps him back down and worries about his injuries. It is revealed that the last talisman was drawn by a younger Rokuro. Though the talisman doesn't work, It had a lot of sentimental value, so he kept it all these years. Rokuro gets emotional seeing it after so long. Their moment almost gets ruined when a demon tries to attack, but he takes a page out of Mike Tyson's book and hits it with an uppercut. Benio comes in and takes out the smaller monsters and leaves the big one to Rokuro. He doesn't disappoint and takes it out with a punch. He formally apologizes for the way he spoke to Ryogo during the meeting. The boy helps him back to the human world where the other two wait to rush him to the hospital. Rokuro hangs back and formally thanks Benio for the help. She admits that when he's fighting, she sees him as great. She reveals that she heard about the tragic incident, and she thinks that it is amazing that he still tries to fight despite being scarred emotionally. Meanwhile, Orima calls another meeting with the 12 Guardians to discuss the demon-suppressed operation all over Japan spearheaded by exorcists from their assorted jurisdictions. The number appearing seems to be consistent apart from Narukami, where the rate of demon sighting is abnormal as well as their power levels. So the chief exorcist tasks Ikaruga to investigate because he feels like he is perfectly suited for the mission. Orima tells him that the twin star exorcists live in that area too. He sets off intrigued to see what they are made of. During that interval, Rokuro comes to the hospital to visit Ryogo, but the senior tells him he's fine as he has been following Jisuma's orders. Rokuro drops off the food he bought for him before heading back to the dorm. The guy enters to find the rest making talismans. He decides to join in and they all insult his calligraphy for being ugly. They even point out that there is no spell power inside. The group is interrupted when Jisuma comes in to inform them that there is being a sighting of 20 demons. Benio stands up and volunteers to head the operation since Ryogo is out of action. The others agree, but Rokuro is a little salty since she is a newcomer. However, he still decides to tag along. They give him a talisman holder Ryogo prepared for him in anticipation for his return to being an exorcist. He accepts it just as they arrive at the scene. The children at the junior school have vanished. The teacher panics looking for them. The team assures him that they will retrieve them as Benio opens a door to the other world. They come to the children being chased by a horde of demons. One of the kids is picked up, but Rokuro comes just in time to save the kid. Benio also joins in and takes out the first wave. Rokuro uses the talisman to fire some imbued rocks, taking out another group. The girls take the next batch swiftly. With the coast clear, the other two are instructed to open a gate to evacuate the kids, but they are ambushed. The children's screams give Rokuro flashbacks to the tragic day he lost all his friends, but he feels relief when the two deal with the threat and get the kids to safety. This causes him to drop his guard, allowing a demon to apprehend him. Just as it's about to eat him, Ikaruga comes in with a devastating dropkick. He then activates his sword and expertly takes down the horde of demons in a fiery inferno. Everyone is impressed with the display of power. Benio addresses him by name and reveals that he is a member of the 12 Guardians. These are the highest-ranking exorcists. Rokuro is a little intimidated because he is around the same age as him and also so strong. Ikaruga finds Rokuro to be rude and punches him for letting his guard down and scolds him on top. An upgrade demon appears and Rokuro springs into action and takes him out. Benio points out to Ikaruga that although the boy has his issues, she acknowledges his strength. All the while, a hooded person sits there watching. Ikaruga wants to investigate, but his boss calls him to return, and he gives him a trivial excuse for calling him back. Orima wanted Rokuro to see someone around his age at the top of the exorcist world. The others return to the human world, and the kids thank them. The following day, Rokuro gets excited when he hears that Ikaruga is 2 years older. The guy got inducted into the 12 when he was the same age as Rokuro. This makes him even happy to hear that. Benio notices his smile and it leads to an argument. Everyone teases them and call the two a couple. The story continues the following day at school when some female students look to break the ice with Benio by showing interest in what she's reading, but Kanako makes a noise alerting her of the appearance of demons. The girls hear this and wonder what they just heard. Benio doesn't address their questions and just tells them that she is leaving early. As she walks away, the girls comment on how this is becoming consistent with the newcomer and how she is surrounded by mystique. This makes her very hard to approach. One of the lads says that that's what is so great about her, as mysterious girls are the best. This makes the girls a little salty as they sarcastically apologize for being transparent. Rokuro stands around listening in on their conversation before following Benio to the door. While he watches her leave, He is certain that she is going to deal with a demon attack. Rokuro turns to find Mayura behind him. She has also noticed Binio's early leaving and expresses her worry. He quickly acts oblivious to the fact, commenting that it is none of his business. Mayura overhears some other students talking about the subject, and they speculate that the girl hangs around with a group of delinquents despite his reserved appearance. The class president gets visions of her in that situation and nervously laughs, hoping that it's not the case. All the while in Magano, the exorcists struggle against some demons, but the appearance of Binio brings great relief as she effortlessly exterminates them. The following morning at school, Mayura greets Binio at the entrance and tries to bring up small talk about beds and futons. However, the newcomer is not interested and just walks off. Later at PE, Mayura offers to be Binio's partner and stretches her, but the class president's assets intimidate her, so she asks her to back off. At lunch, Mayura joins Binio, opening her impressive bento that she made herself. All the while, the mysterious girl reveals hers, and it is only ohagi. As they go to their next class, Mayura still tries hard to spark a conversation with Binio. The newcomer wants to know why she is so concerned. This gives the president the chance to voice her desire to be friends. She also alludes to her narrative that Binio is hanging around with dangerous people. The newcomer thinks that she means her exorcist work, so confirms this and informs her that they live in different worlds, so they can't be friends. As she walks home from school, Kanako teases Mayura for wanting to be friends, but Binio seems to want the friendship, but she feels like it will be a waste of time. Rokuro bumps into her along the way and notices that there is something off about her, given her even more distant behavior. Later that night, the team throws a mini party because of Ryogo's recovery from his last stint in Magano. Everyone expresses their joy to have him back, but Rokuro tries to downplay his happiness to see his return. But he worriedly glances at the bandages on his hand. Everyone is a little surprised that Ryogo wants to jump straight into action since they are understaffed. This makes Rokuro feel guilty, so he offers his help, and the lads express their joy to see him back in the team. Binio looks on as his rivals have decided to take being an exorcist seriously again. The old lady comments about it to her. She has a late-night bath and reinforces her determination not to fall behind Rokuro. All the while, Mayura updates her diary on the day's events and how Binio doesn't seem to be opening to her. However, she is resolved in trying to establish that friendship. That weekend, the team has training, but they plead for Binio to let Rokuro handle any demons for the day since they are trying to get him back acclimated to the job. She agrees and teases him that his exorcist outfit is too big for him. She then goes out on a jog to get some training in. Her thoughts are interrupted by Mayura, who decides to join her after hearing word that she was out doing some road work. The class president realizes that Binio is hungry as her stomach growls, so assures her that she will take care of it. Mayura takes her to a restaurant that is famous for its ohagi. She orders a full plate. Binio looks at that food with awe, as it is her favorite. She wonders why the president brought her. She states she too is hungry and begins to eat, commenting on how delicious the food is. Binio can't resist and takes a bite herself and has the same sentiments as her normal reserved facial expression turns to delight. Mayura informs her that they will be together the whole day and she will not let her go to see the bad people she thinks Binio is associated with, even if they call. She tells her that she will not be going because someone took her place for the day, but she calls the replacement useless. Mayura has a vision of a delinquent confronting another gang in her place. Binio begins to talk about how this person inspires her to have a bit more courage. The president says that her description reminds her of someone she knows, not knowing they are both talking about Rokuro. However, Binio can't let him outdo her. The topic changes when Binio wants to know why Mayura is giving her so much attention. The class president tells her simply that she wants to be friends. The moment is interrupted when the lights flicker. During that interim, Rokuro and the rest of the team head to Magano to deal with a routine demon sighting. He is in his element as he takes out a bunch of demons with his stone shotgun technique. The team relaxes a little when they take out the last of them. When suddenly more emerge, they quickly regroup and launch an offensive, defeating them. The battle doesn't end as a giant demon appears. It screams and sends a deafening sound wave. The other member of the team casts some barrier talismans, but they are shattered. It counters and takes out the team except for Rokuro. All the while, Binio steps outside and sees that Magano's distortion has occurred in her area. The crack between the two worlds has allowed the demons to take a lady hostage. She springs into action and summons a gate to the other world. Mayura calls to her as she disappears and is a little surprised that her new friend is an exorcist. Back to the other battle, Rokuro's past trauma gets triggered after seeing his comrades in such a state. He quickly overcomes it as the demon approaches him and uses his black talisman to activate his power and swiftly ends the fight with a single punch. Elsewhere in Magano, Binio deals with the demons that took the lady, and as she prepares to head back to the normal world, her familiar is certain that Mayura will have run away terrified after witnessing the Megano distortion. To their surprise, she is still there when they return. The president calls Binio and rushes to hug her, relieved that her new friend is safe. Binio is surprised at first, but hugs her back when she sees how genuine her concern is. As they walk home, Mayura informs Binio that she should have told her that she was an exorcist sooner. The girl reveals that her Zenkichi head of Binio's dorm is her grandfather. Mayura wants to know where Binio is currently living. Soon after, Rokuro and the team arrive back home, but before they enter, Ryogo commends him on a job well done. He states that they all made it back because of his actions. Rokuro gets a little embarrassed when they thank him. The moment is interrupted when Mayura angrily asks him what he's grinning about. She dashes on him and begins to slate him for not alerting her that he's living with Binio. While watching the assault, Binio rethinks being friends with her jokingly. Meanwhile, in Megano, Zenkichi makes his way to the battlefield left by his subordinates. The old man inspects the remains of the monster that Rokuro defeated, and his face turns to shock when he confirms his suspicions and comments on how afraid he is to be right. In the interim, Ikaruga arrives at the main shrine, and as he proceeds, the guy is called by his colleague, but he pays her no attention. The lady informs him that he's wasting his time if he is looking for Arima because the guy has gone to Narukami. He's going there to take the twin-star exorcists somewhere for their trial. At the dorm, the head arrives and notifies Rokuro and Binio in a flamboyant manner that they will be taking a test. He is happy to hear that the lad has decided to be working as an exorcist again. The leader tells the two to get ready as they will be heading out to a wonderful place. It is a stage in their development that they cannot avoid. The two nervously sit in the back as they get transported, but to their surprise, the testing ground is only a few minutes away from their home. They arrive at a mansion with state-of-the-art surveillance and other amenities. The two are impressed as they are shown around, but things get a little awkward when Arima informs them that they will be living together alone. Their supplies are dropped off after they are shown to their respective rooms. Arima also takes Kanako away so that they are completely alone. The familiar tries to protest, but the leader just walks off with him. The two make their way to their room, and Rokuro begins to panic about the situation. All the while, Arima walks and watches them from a tablet. Just when they think things couldn't get any spicier, the exorcist leader locks their doors and removes the wall that separates their rooms. It also begins to tilt. An event with a screwdriver dangling in front of it is presented. Just as they wonder what is going on, Arima communicates with them via video intercom, explaining that it is their first trial. At the end of the air vent, there is a button that will turn the room back to normal. They are to work together to reach and press it. The boss has also placed a barrier that blocks their spell power, so they must use their brain, teamwork, and good old muscle. Kanako protests against this, but Arima alerts him that this is the first step to ensuring that Miko is born. The two begin by first trying to do it independently but find little success. Binio makes the first leap and helps Rokuro join her. They have a little moment when he accidentally falls on top of her, but Rokuro apologizes and backs off. Arima is watching the events like a K-drama romance, getting excited that his plan is working. The two get back on task and Rokuro boots her to the next platform. She makes a rope out of the bed sheets and tosses it down for him to use. They both reach the final platform as they stretch for the screwdriver, but they realize they are too short on their own. All the while, Miura complains that the two are living together exclusively, and the girl is jealous as she too has feelings for Rokuro. The guy is not your standard Chad, but he seems to have his unique riz. Mayura's complaints are interrupted by Ryogo, who informs everyone of a powerful demon that has been sighted. Back to the room, Rokuro shoulders Binio, propping her up so that she can reach the screwdriver. The girl uses it to remove the vent cover before climbing inside. The lad follows soon after. He tries to be a gentleman as they proceed through the vent. He receives a call from Ryogo, who alerts him of the way they are struggling against the demon. The two rush to the end where a computer with a riddle on it waits. If they get the answer wrong, they will be sent back to the room to climb again. Luckily, Rokuro gets the right answer, so they land in the corridor. Binio immediately opens a gate to Megano. As the strange-looking demon prepares to attack, Rokuro comes in clutch and knocks it back. Binio follows up with her double blades, which sends the demon into a frenzy. The exercise improved their teamwork because Rokuro calls for her to evacuate as he lands the final blow. They praise each other, and he points out that her hair tie is missing. This causes Binio to panic because it has a lot of sentimental value as it was given to her by her late brother. She frantically looks around trying to find it as the others arrive. They watch on confused as Rokuro takes her by the hand as they head back to the normal world. He jumps back up the vent and retrieves it to her delight. As they sit in the living room, she thanks him. The guy reveals that he noticed something was different about her when they entered Megano, so he looked at her till he realized that it was the hair tie that was missing. He figured that she must have dropped it before they entered the other world. They go take a bath after a strenuous day before having dinner. Now with full bellies, Benio opens about her twin brother and how she looked up to him after both their parents died. The siblings got separated. She was later informed that he passed away during the Kagar exorcism. The guy sacrificed himself to protect his comrades. Rukuro apologizes for making her recall such a painful memory. He reveals that he was abandoned as a baby, so he doesn't even know who his mother and father are. He only became an exorcist because one took him in, so he's not heir to a fancy lineage like the rest. She assures him that that doesn't matter as his power is remarkable, but she can't let it sit like that since they are rivals, so she adds that he's generally useless. This leads to the two having a lighthearted argument. That brings the episode to an end.